even though in electronic music, love stop is kind of four to the floor, I still think kind of the rhythmic element to making a song is really interesting. So I think that's what just made it really interesting to me.
My name is Adam, and this is about you and your journey in music and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. First off, where were you born and raised?
So I mean, I was born in the south of Holland.
Okay.
I was raised in Holland as well. I moved to a bigger city when I went studying, basically, and now I'm mostly based in Utrecht and Amsterdam, the capital city in Holland, to work on music.
Very cool. Awesome. So born and raised in Holland. What was that like?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, I don't really know anything else, obviously, so it's
Sure.
hard to say how things would have been if I would be German or British. But
right. I'm just curious because I'm from the United States and I've yet to travel there, so I didn't know like what it was. Are you in a small town, big town? Like, was there venues around you to play music, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up initially in like a small town, but I was already kind of playing drums when I was pretty young, and then I kind of went on to produce music at home. And then later on, when I was like 15, 16, 17, I really got into club music and electronic music more and more. And obviously, the electronic music scene in Holland and also the club cultures has always been really, really, really great. So I do think, I guess the underground culture here has really shaped kind of my sound as a producer and DJ.
You said you started playing drums how old are you when you started on drums?
Yeah. I'm not sure actually. I think like super early. I think like 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
And then later on, what I started to do was program drums electronically on my computer. And that was kind of when I also got into electronic music production, basically.
Okay. And do you know what drew you to drums? Or like, were you into a certain artist or band that you wanted to play drums to?
Sorry, what was that?
I said, what drew you to the drums? Do you know? Or are you just interested in smashing stuff?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. No, I mean, I think, honestly, like, I still really like it because even though in electronic music, love stop is kind of four to the floor, I still think kind of the rhythmic element to making a song is really interesting. So I think that's what just made it really interesting to me. I mean, I've listened to loads of music, not just like percussion focused stuff, but also when I was growing up, I was playing Jamiroquai, for example, a lot.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So kind of like the groovy, funky kind of records that I was really into, which I think shaped me mostly.
And then you started to produce, like, did you get a Ableton or something on your computer, Fruity Loops, or like how did you start producing? Like, I wouldn't even know how to get into that. You just get a program and just start screwing around.
Yeah, exactly. I started in FL Studio actually.
Okay, FL Studio,
which was when I was like, I think 11. So I started mostly focusing on drums actually, because that was kind of my main thing anyway. But then I started kind of sampling sounds and vocals more and more, and started programming drums around them, but also started playing, synths around them and melodies. And that's kind of when I got more and more interested in just actual music production, I guess.
Okay, I see a bass next to you. Do you play bass also?
Oh yeah, I do a little bit. Yeah, I play it a little bit. I would say I'm not a phenomenal kind of multi-instrumentalist. I'm more of a producer and a DJ. That's kind of my main thing. But I do like to kind of incorporate kind of the organic elements a little bit, as if I can.
When you have your first song done, like, do you just start putting them up on SoundCloud or something? Like, how do you get the career started?
Yeah, I did start with like SoundCloud. Also, before I was kind of releasing music, I was also DJing.
Okay, so you started DJing before you were putting out music.
Yeah, it was kind of at like a similar time, I have to say, but like I was already DJing before I really started putting out actual releases, basically. So
Were
I
you
was
just DJing clubs and like playing, you know,
yeah,
other records and then mixing and sort of everything else?
exactly. Yeah, I was like playing in like underground clubs here in Holland. Also even student parties when I was studying. That's what I was kind of doing initially, and then obviously later on I also started releasing music more seriously on like
Mhm.
bigger dance labels, and that's when I kind of started DJing internationally as well, and playing just
Wow.
some shows abroad, basically.
What was the first show you did? Was that in when you made it into university, or is it prior?
You mean like my very first show, or
Yeah, yeah, your first show as a DJ. Like you're like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna try to DJ a party or whatever it was.
yeah, I think it was like a student event, and then I also kind of started DJing in smaller clubs in Holland, basically. So that was kind of my start, and then later on, when I was like 19, 20, 21, I started playing some shows in other countries as well, which is really exciting. So yeah.
Okay, so you said you started in underground clubs and parties and stuff, but like, okay, so going to a club, do you have to just know people that were already DJing there? Like, how do you even get your foot in the door at something like that? Do you have a?
Yeah.
I know if you're in a band or something, like you hand them a CD and you're like, "Here's my 5 demos. Will you let me play on a Tuesday night at midnight or whatever?" Like, how do you
Yeah.
do that with a DJ
I
as a
well,
DJ?
I guess definitely it helps if you know certain people that are also DJing, if you know maybe the local kind of resident DJs, or you might know a few promoters, and you start meeting more people. I guess if you're really into club culture and house music, then you kind of start going to these parties anyway and start meeting people. And that's, I guess, a good way to kind of maybe kind of slowly roll into maybe yeah, just DJing. And obviously you can also start producing music, and then if your music does well, then you will be booked as DJ as well, obviously, which is also an approach that works for a lot of people. You know, there's a lot of young guys that send music to record labels, get signed, and yeah, and just build a career like that. So I guess there's multiple ways to do it, but for
Okay.
me it did start with DJing as well, and kind of the underground club culture that I was really into at the moment.
Did you go to college for music?
I didn't actually. No, I
Okay.
studied psychology.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Do you, and so that was just the thing that you're like, okay, I'll fall back on this, or was it always the plan to be a DJ, or did this kind of just take over in the sense?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I was always kind of focused on music anyway, so I
Mhm.
didn't feel like I needed to do a specific music program. I wanted to also kind of challenge myself in a different way, which is why I went for a psychology program at a university here. And I guess, you know, it's good to kind of have that experience too in life, you know. But I did end up obviously doing music full time when I finished, basically.
Okay. Okay. And was there like what really you said you got signed to some indie labels or you got people putting out your songs? Like what was the first song that got you kind of in that light?
Yeah, so I think initially I started releasing music on Armada Music, which is like quite a big independent dance label here in Europe. They're based in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really was kind of the first music that I released that got me to play for a bigger audience and also play shows abroad. Um,
And
I think
how,
that
well,
that was kind of,
how'd you connect with them? Like, how did you get signed to that label? You must have had a song or something you handed to them, and they're like, "Oh yeah," or was it just
yeah.
they were at your shows? Like, how do you even make that relationship?
I think I emailed them. I just emailed them actually,
Really?
send them a bunch of demos, and then got to meet them basically.
Was
Um,
that must have been a huge moment for you? I mean, even just to get a
yeah,
response, you're like, "Whoa!"
yeah. At the time, definitely it was great, you know, because I was still studying, wasn't really doing music professionally yet. So when you do sign, I guess a first record, that is definitely exciting, and it definitely helped me kind of yeah, just start my career there basically.
Mhm. And then you put an album or you put some songs out, and then you start getting bigger shows. And do they help you get bigger gigs? You talked about playing abroad for the first time.
Exactly. Yeah, they definitely helped me do that. And I guess, from there, my career just developed, my sound also developed. Later on, I actually took a break for about 1.5 years
Oh,
to
really?
kind of fully focus on making new music and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do next. And that's when I signed to Sony Music, which was last year. And
Wow.
that's kind of, that kind of became a new chapter for me, I guess. Working with a major label and just releasing new music again.
Mm-hmm. You took a year, you said a year and a half off?
Yeah, exactly.
Was there did you just decide okay, I need to take the next year to really focus on what I'm doing? What, why did you make that decision?
Yeah, I think, if you're an artist and also if you're a DJ, you're kind of always in kind of the rat race of releasing music, doing shows, and you never really kind of get to really sit down to just create music without having to worry about doing a show or promoting a campaign or whatever. You never really get to actually focus on the creative process. And I kind of felt that when I took some time off and just didn't play shows, didn't really focus on updating my social media, but actually just having a real break, that really helped me kind of figure out what I wanted to do next creatively, because I do think it's important to kind of keep pushing your boundaries and trying to do something that keeps interesting you. So that was really important for me, and I think that's also why I signed with Sony Music later, because I just have a lot of music right now that I'm excited about, and it's just great to release it.
Oh, that's awesome. And with Sony Music, when did that happen?
So that happened last year. Yeah.
Oh, in 2021 or 2020?
Yeah, it's 2021. So
Okay.
obviously it's just a new year, so I kind of have to get used to being in 2022.
Right. That's
well.
what I'd be. Yeah, that's why I was like, okay, maybe he's talking about 2020. Let's just clarify. Since we're only 6 days in.
Exactly. No, it's quite recent. It's quite recent. I mean, we kicked off quite recently. Started putting out the first tracks, which was really exciting. It's been a really great year, and I'm really excited to kind of take it all to the next level this year.
Mm-hmm. With you said you took with the year and a half off that you took, did you start that year and a half in 2019? So kind of almost as horrible as it sounds, worked out for your plan because nobody could play live anyway, right?
Yeah, that was a coincidence actually, but you're definitely right. It kind of overlapped with the whole kind of COVID situation, and obviously the global pandemic and artists not being able to do any shows and stuff like that. So I guess that was good timing, but at the same time, I would have hoped that things would have been better right now, because right now in Holland we're actually again in a lockdown.
I was gonna ask. So you are in a lockdown? Oh my gosh,
we are again. Yeah.
What's that? So you can't leave, or what state of lockdown are you in?
Yeah, so I mean, this is actually, obviously we had an initial lockdown in 2020, I think, and 2021 as well. But right now, actually, it's just everything is closed again, apart from supermarkets and doctors and stuff like that. But a lot of stuff is closed right now. Obviously, no clubs, no music venues, no cinema. So it's it's a pretty serious lockdown again, and I guess it has to do with the new variant that is starting to spread. And obviously in Holland, I guess they don't really have the capacity at hospitals to kind of control everything, maybe as well as in some other countries. So it's just been frustrating for a lot of artists here, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, can you go out and play? I know here in the States, there's some shows happening. I don't know now with this new variant. I'm pretty sure people are still playing. I mean, they were 2 months ago. So is that something where you can go, okay, I've got these new records out, I need to promote it. Can you go to another country close by and perform, or is everything kind of shut down? And how does that affect you getting back into Holland? Or like, I mean, I wouldn't even know how that would work.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more complicated. I mean, there's rules obviously for every country, and so it's a lot more complicated. And obviously Holland is kind of my home territory, so I'd love to play shows here as well. So there's definitely downsides to it, but at the same time, I did focus on making music a lot, which is great. And yeah, definitely this year I'm going to be doing shows anyway. So yeah, I'm just excited to get on the road. Really, I'm not really too worried about the past year, because I was kind of focusing on music anyway and
looking forward.
Yeah,
that should do well back there. So you know you're spending the year and a half writing songs and getting that all together. Were you like tell me about that process?
Yeah, kind of the lockdown situation, you mean, and just
yeah, like okay, so now we're locked down, and you're like, okay, you had already started what you had this plan to stop for a year or year and a half, whatever it was.
Yeah.
To write music, to start writing music, and then it's like, okay, now we're stuck inside. Like, did that affect any of the songs at all? Like, were you able to spend more time on them, or how did that?
I guess obviously, there's just so much time if you don't have to do shows and stuff like that. It's just like you have a lot more time to really kind of to explore, creatively, which is really fun. So that's what I did. And I think that's definitely a good thing. I think that keeps things fresh and interesting, and kind of allows you to keep moving things forward, which is super cool. I wouldn't say my music got more melancholic or anything just because we were in a lockdown. But I did notice that when I was kind of in that lockdown and I had a lot of time to think, for me at least, it really brought back my love for house music and club culture again, and really made me feel in love with house music and club culture again. So definitely that's also why a lot of the music that I'm releasing right now is very like house driven and feels very positive and uplifting, which is what I love about electronic music and the way it started, basically.
With that, like, how did the Sony music thing come together? Was it okay, you spent the year writing songs and just trying to put your best foot forward, and then you send the songs to Sony, or like, was there a relationship that formed prior to that? Like, how do you get in contact with them?
Yeah, I initially got in contact with Sony in Holland, and then also started speaking to Sony in the UK. And yeah, it just took some time, and then later on I signed a deal, basically, and that was kind of my first my first real major label deal, which is really exciting, because I had been releasing music on on like more indie dance labels before. And now I really got to work with just a super good, exciting team that was just passionate about kind of my vision for the future and about all the music that I had. So it's just great to have a team that's really excited to kind of just follow the vision and the plan that you have for your music and yourself, basically.
Coming from an indie label, you said a bigger indie label, big dance label in Holland, to a major label, like, what is the difference there? Like, are they, I mean, how are they? I guess my question is just like, what is the like, when you get to that next level, like, how does that differ from being on an indie label?
Well, I do think it really depends on the label, because like there are certain dance labels that really release a lot of music, and they really focus on just putting out lots of music, and they're not as focused on developing an actual artist proposition, I would say. Whereas, for example, there are also independent labels that are really kind of focusing on a small roster of artists and really doing great things to develop them. So it does depend on the label. I guess with major labels, they are very well equipped to kind of market and guide an artist in a really kind of close way, and they just have a really good raw team to do that. And they're not really focusing on certain trends, I guess. They're more focused on the artist and what the artist wants to do.
That's amazing, because I would imagine the opposite. I would think like, oh, okay, now, you know, I'm doing really well on this indie label. Now I'm signed to a major. Maybe now I'm a small fish in a big pond, so to speak. Like, are they going to be paying attention to me? But it sounds like you've got a lot of support from Sony. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. It's been really good and fun kind of process so far. And yeah, like I said, I mean, it really depends, you know. I mean, there's also, I have a lot of friends that are artists that are also, you know, doing really well with indie labels. So I guess it all depends. I think comes down to the team that you work with, and their excitement and their passion for what they're doing, and their vision essentially. And of course, just the quality of the music, and whether it's something that you know, people are excited about and pushes things forward, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. And with before we get into your new song, because I want to hear about the new song "Don't Let Me Down," I'm wondering, like, or I did read that you have some things going on with MTV.
Yeah.
What's
yeah,
that?
MTV,
What's that? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I got picked earlier last year by MTV to become the new MTV Push Artist, which was really cool. I mean,
What is
MTV,
that? What does that mean when you're the MTV Push Artist?
yeah, so what MTV does is they just look at new kind of developing artists, and sometimes if they're excited about a new artist that's coming up, they will yeah, make them the MTV Push Artist, and they will basically be yeah, they will put a spotlight on that artist for an entire month, and that artist will, you know, have their music video in the television playlist for a month and stuff like that. So it's really kind of, yeah, kind of like a breakthrough artist thing for a month at MTV, which is super cool. You know, I was super glad that they were just excited about kind of my new music and kind of the new plans I had for that year. And yeah, it's just one of those things that definitely helped me last year to kind of develop yeah, my new music.
I would think. I mean, that's so rad to have. Well, here in the States, I feel like MTV would never do that, because they just focus on like trash reality shows, and like they don't really show videos. I mean, there's no one really promoting music. I think they even drop music from music television. I think it's just called MTV now. Anyway, but I'm sure it sounds different there. And with that, like, what was it like seeing your video on TV for the first time?
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a bit like hearing your song on the radio. You know, it's
yeah,
it's definitely cool. You know, it
When was the first time you heard your song on the radio?
You mean like the first time ever, or
yeah, like, do you remember that? Like, oh my gosh, like, mom and dad, I'm gonna get my song. Like, did you know it was happening? Like, were you able to like be in your car or wherever you were listening?
Yeah, I think I was like in the car actually. And yes, it's cool. Like, I have to say, like, obviously when it's on a radio station, they put like a lot of compression on the record as well, so it sounds even fuller and bigger. And then if you're in a car with like a big stereo system, it's a new experience, you know. Like, it's a new way of hearing your song instead of just hearing it in your studio on your normal monitors. So, and then you have this cool radio DJ announcing it, you know. So it's definitely something that I think is exciting for a lot of artists, and it still is for me as well.
Yeah. I come from radio. I did radio for a very, 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 very long time, and I love the fact that you took notice to the compression of the song, because it sounds so much different going on the air, right? I mean, when, just from my experience, like we would test songs, and you know, you'd listen to songs in meetings, and they're like, okay, we're gonna put this new record on the air, you know, tonight, we'll see. And then you hear it, and that could even make or break the song. Like, sometimes it sounds so different that you're like, and it's so minuscule that you're like, I don't know if this is gonna work. Is this gonna work in the playlist? But the fact that you paid that, you know, obviously you're a producer, so you could hear that, but like, it is a totally different way of kind of listening to your own song.
Yeah. And it sometimes is good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes they kind of over compress it.
That's what I mean. Like, you'll hear a song, you're like, what happened? You're like, this
So,
record
yeah.
sounded so good in the music meeting we just had. What now we playing it on the radio? It sounds like, yeah, it's just funny. So that's so, but being in your car, you know, you said the DJ is like, all right, we got, you know, new Paul Mayson coming up, and like that must be such a rad thing.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is, man. It's cool. Like, especially I think, and I haven't really had that yet because I'm not in a car listening to radio a lot. I don't even own a car. But
And most people aren't even listening to the radio.
but it's even cooler if you don't know that it's going to be played, and then you hear
Right,
it being
right.
played. Like that. I would love to kind of just step into an Uber and then hear my song on the radio without me knowing it's going to be played. Like that's kind of the next step I want to get to, you know?
And yeah, and then when does that happen? You just say, hey dude, like tap on the Uber driver's shoulder and be like, you hear that? That's my record.
Yeah.
Like,
Turn it up.
Would you gloat? I mean, I would.
I would just ask him to turn it up, you know?
I'd be like, yeah, tell him, hey man, dude, I love this record. Do you know who this guy is? Totally, yeah, get him to, you know, tell his friends. But that's so cool. That's so cool. I couldn't imagine seeing my song like on TV or even on the radio. Like how it's so cool to hear the stories of people hearing their song and really appreciating it. Cause, you know, coming from radio for so long, like I feel like the magic is kind of, you know, going away with streaming numbers. And, you know, I have young kids that probably won't even care. They don't care about the radio, or like, you know, it's just such a different world and different culture. But I think there's still something so cool and nostalgic about hearing your song on the radio for the radio at all.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, let's hear about your new song. Don't Let Me Down. That's the newest one you put out.
Yep.
Tell me about the song.
Yeah, for sure. So it's my latest single. Came out a couple weeks ago. It features Zac Pajak, who's a really cool UK singer-songwriter. Yeah, I mean it's I guess a bit of a mix between like house with also R&B and pop and soul kind of influences. I love to kind of, you know, keep pushing my boundaries as a producer and a songwriter. And obviously I'm really into house music, so a lot of my music is very like house driven and very club focused. But it's definitely, there's like a lot of R&B and soul elements into that record, which made it for me a really fun kind of song to make.
Mm-hmm. And how do you collaborate with somebody? Was this over Zoom like this, or like, you know, for somebody in the UK, especially if we're in a lockdown situation?
Yeah. So actually we started writing a song in Amsterdam during Amsterdam Dance Event, I think 2 years ago already.
Oh, wow.
So we were in the room together, and then later on I took a plane to London to work with Zac and kind of finish the song with him. And then we kind of did some more tweaks over Zoom and stuff, but like most of the song was written actually together in a studio, which I still think is a lot better than a Zoom session, you know, with a songwriter or a producer. So yeah, it's still definitely best to kind of be in the room with someone and kind of allow yourself to have that creative interaction, you know.
Definitely. Were you like for other new songs on your album and stuff you've been working on, did any of that have to be done remotely as far as collaborations went?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, definitely a lot of it nowadays is kind of sending ideas over email to each other, or just like voice notes on WhatsApp. Sometimes if you have a certain like lyric or melody idea, I also just like WhatsApp with certain writers and singers that I like. So it's a lot. Yeah, it's definitely a lot different than actually being in the studio together. I feel like being in the studio together is a lot quicker and easier. But yeah, it does work over a Zoom or a WhatsApp call as well. It's just a really different process, I guess. And
it's probably harder to vibe with someone, especially if you've never met them in person. Like, have you worked with somebody you had never met in person and then had to do a Zoom, and where you're like, okay, this is weird?
Yeah, well, it's definitely different, man. Yeah, and I love to travel as well, so I love to be. I used to be in the UK quite a lot to just sit down with songwriters and write music. There's a lot of like songwriters in the UK that I really love to work with. So you definitely miss out on a lot of like the fun stuff about making music if you only do it from your own kind of lockdown situation, your own home all the time. Definitely. So
Right.
yeah.
For sure, for sure. Well, Paul, thank you so much, man, for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it. Sorry for all the technical glitches with my as I'm talking, it has a technical glitch. I want to know, I have one more question for you before this whole system blows up. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Right. Advice for aspiring artists. I think what's important is to really kind of just be yourself, do your own thing. Try to do something that is what you really want to do. Just don't try to copy someone else. I think it's really important to kind of just look at what you really want to say or create or write or produce, and just focus on that. Believe in kind of your own vision, and then start sharing that with other people. I think that is a really good start to building hopefully sustainable artist career, you know.